Okay, Proverbs chapter 4 and verse number 8. And we have been speaking on wisdom the entire time. Um, by the way, when you read the book of Proverbs, we look at this author. This gentleman was giving out the instructions. You could probably say that he was very much a man that had that ability. He had the ability to write Proverbs. He was a very smart man, a very wise man. In fact, Solomon had wisdom that was beyond measure. If you go and you look at the original, by the way, Scofield will have this in chapter 1. The Proverbs or Solomon's implies no more that they were gathered in an orderly arrangement, say it's concurrent amongst the people, the wisdom of the Spirit, perhaps through many centuries. What his point is trying to make is there are others, but most of these are Solomon's. And when they were written, it's hard to tell. But what he gets into tonight, especially chapter 5, he's talking to his son. So why does it apply to women? Yeah, it applies to women, but he's got a son, so he's talking to his son. Perhaps Solomon knew more about the things he's making a reference here than anybody else because he lived it. He had the ability to have the insight. You know, Solomon's wisdom was the gift of God. And the gift of God was also his downfall, right? Have you ever noticed when God can give you a gift and it actually be a detriment to you? How many remember Hezekiah when he turned his face to the wall, right? Right? And God gave him 15 more years. He had a son during those 15 years. Guess what? Evil young. I mean, one of the worst kings ever. Yeah, he is. Maybe I should. Was it that good? You know? Solomon made some mistakes in his life, but he's been pursuing wisdom here in the first few chapters. And he began this chapter with verse 8, brother? It's verse 8. Because we got there where it talks about it, hear ye children, the instruction of a father, and intended no understanding. And in verse 5, we keyed on last time, but verse number 7, those two. In verse 5, he says, get wisdom, get understanding. Verse number 7, therefore get wisdom with all thy getting, get understanding. The point he's made it so far is how important it is to have that wisdom. And it is not the wisdom of the world. It is not the wisdom of the world. That is not what sustains you. You see, if you have the wisdom of God, you'll know what wisdom of the world you need to get, right? You do. You'll know which line of work to go into. You'll know what you should obtain. You can spend your time on things that are trivial. I'm reminded, I watched this past week when, since Alex Trebek finished Jeopardy, all those things are just trivia, right? And everybody loves to watch it. What does it do you in life? I mean, Ken Jennings is a brilliant, masterful mind, right? But what good does that do you when it comes to salvation? Does it give you a leg up knowing more? If anything, it hinders you, right? Because it makes you think, well, I know enough, I can do this. Wisdom he speaks about here is the wisdom of God. Paul the Apostle said that I might know him in the power of his resurrection. So get wisdom, get understanding, verse 5. Verse 7, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom with all thy getting, get understanding. With all you've got, get understanding, get wisdom. You're going to need this. You know, you're not going to be able to handle it. Things happen in your life, and you have no idea how to fix it, do you? Brother Matt, I know you've done this before. Have you ever worked on a vehicle and all of a sudden there is a special tool that you needed and you ain't got? Name a special tool, and I'll get to Brother Andre because he's chomping at the bit.
I was about to say a little set of pliers and take out the C clips, like inside stuff. They didn't have it. Well,
Andre, you got some too?
Oh, you work on something all the time in this special tool. Yesterday, my son-in-law was going to put brakes on Caprice's vehicle.
Right.
And when he started, and I put brakes on this vehicle before. So I knew I had a tool somewhere, but we couldn't find it. We looked and looked and looked, never could find it. I ended up going to buy something just to change the brakes. And I knew I would have changed the brakes on it before.
It's kind of like wisdom. There's sometimes you need it and you ain't got it. Well, how do I deal with this? I don't know. Why? I should have had wisdom. I should have known this, right? By the way, that's why I recommend studying the Bible, memorizing it, because it's like a tool that you need. And you need it when you face it, right? When you ain't got it, you don't know. Last week I gave the example of how I used to think how you paid the pastor was we take up a love offering. We didn't know any better. But then when we found out 1 Corinthians chapter 9, we realized, wait a minute, I got wisdom now. You pay the preacher. And it says clearly how you pay the pastor. He eats of what is brought in, right? Absolutely. So you start learning, I should have had this. Why didn't I have this wisdom? Well, the preacher didn't preach on it. And sometimes they were afraid to say anything. But you got to preach on it. But there are tools that you need. So he said, with all you're getting, get understanding. You're going to need this. But so how would you say the average church member is when it comes to telling their children about what they need to learn in life? What do you think's focused on more? Their education in God or their education in secular society? Society. Travel ball is all about, we've got to get a scholarship. Why? Well, we've got to get a college education. Why? Why do you need to go to college? Well, how are you going to make money? There are a lot of ways to make money without going to college. Plenty of them. And there are a lot of professions you can get other ways. And by the way, and have you asked God about it? And why do you need anything other than the knowledge of God? When church members decide that he says, get understanding, in verse 5 and verse 7 of this chapter 4, he says it's so important to get the wisdom of God. Have you taught your children about the Lord? You ever teach them about Christ? You ever tell them some stories? I used to ride back and forth to Florence and they had an old Aerostar van, and I'd tell them some stories out of the Bible. And here's what the Lord says. And, just make sure they got that understanding, that wisdom. As Brother Paul said at one revival he was preaching, he said, my boys got older now, they got to take ownership of it. You can't believe it because Daddy said so. You got to take ownership of it yourself. You got to know it. And they need to know, what does the book say? My daddy said, I had an older gentleman, he's much older than me, and he would say, brother, my mom always said do so and so, and always what my mama said. And there are people like that. They quote their mother, their father, their pastor, or some wise person, as opposed to saying, what does the Lord say? With all you've got, listen how he says it. With all thy getting, get understanding. So I think it's kind of an important thing, because this is what you need. Now, the only way to get it, you got to take time with the Bible. You know how I learned how the Bible is? The more I'd have to go to things I didn't recognize. I mean, I thought Chronicles and Corinthians were the same thing. I couldn't tell the difference between them. I mean, it's kind of silly now, but I mean, I didn't know the difference. I really didn't. I didn't know anything about the Gospels. How many Gospels are there? And I found out there was 4 of them. There's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I didn't know about the others. I really didn't know. And one day I was reading these books, and I couldn't figure it out. And I was reading on a commentary, and he said the word epistle means letter. Oh, it's a letter to them people. It's a letter to who? And I found out a Mexican is a person from Mexico, and an Ephesian is a person from Ephesus, and a Corinthian is a person from Corinth. And the light bulb went off. I said, that's simple understanding, Brother Glenn. Yeah, but for a young Christian, and I don't mean young because I've been saved a year. I've been saved probably about 6, 7, 8 years. Finally figuring this stuff out. But we need that understanding. And then the more I started using my Bible, the more I got used to flipping to it. I know where it's at. These have Bible drills remember Bible drills, trying to learn the Bible, we could go to it. The only problem with that is, it's great for that, but that's all it did for you. To know where the books are. And how fast can I turn to it? Didn't tell you a thing what was in it. Bible drills are fine, brothers and sisters, but that's not what God asked us to do. He said, study. Study to show thyself approved unto God. We need to know it, and we need that understanding. By the way, you ain't got to study a lot, but what you do study, just study it. So for those listening, for anybody who wants to, so let me tell you how if you really want to understand the Bible, take your Wednesday night Bible study. When it's over tonight, tomorrow night you start studying for Sunday morning, Sunday school, whatever your lesson is, every night go through it. When Sunday comes, you'll be ready. And when Sunday night comes, start studying for Wednesday night Bible. I used to do that that's how I learned. I only studied those 2 things. I didn't go to all those others. I found out it's just confusion. It's too much. By the way, the Sunday school was kind of rough because it changed every week. But the Bible study on Wednesday night was awesome because I know where we was going to, and we're going to the next one. But you couldn't build on Sunday school. By the way, Sunday school still is poor, by the way. Jumping around like that doesn't help you. I still am not satisfied with it. This is the way God intended us to study the Bible. So get understanding. Exalt her, and she shall promote thee. She shall bring thee to honor when thou dost embrace her. This is the benefits of simply having the wisdom. She's going to exalt you. She shall give to thine head an ornament of grace, and a crown of glory, shall she deliver to thee. This is the benefits. When you have that understanding, how good it is, hear, O son, and receive my sayings, and the years of thy life shall be many. It's great for you because it teaches you a lot of things, how to stay healthy, by the way. But you know how the Lord teaches these things, you stay out of trouble. You stay out of a lot of things you didn't need to get into. I didn't sin. I did absolutely nothing wrong. I was drinking a glass of sweet tea. I know, but you was at a bar, wasn't you? Fights break out at bars. People get angry at bars. They're drinking, right? What do you think happens there? In other words, common sense. Maybe you were doing nothing wrong, but just that part of it. Wisdom would tell you certain things to avoid, right? Wisdom gives you things that you could figure out pretty easily. And he gives you warnings, but also tells you what to do and to keep yourself in the right frame of mind. It's like going to God's house. If you go to most churches, you've got so many programs, it's hard to figure out what is the church really about. Because we got the two services, we got this group and this group and this group. We got this mission, this mission, this mission, and they're doing great work. But what is the church really? What is their theme? So they have to write this thing on the board. So this is our preamble, or this is our mission statement. This is who we are. As opposed to saying, what does the book say? Just be a witness. Just be a witness. Look, he says, the years of your life will be many. Just hear it. I have taught thee in the way of wisdom. I have led thee in right paths. Now he's talking about how he's given to his son, because verse number 3, I was my father's son, tender, only beloved. Verse 4, he taught me. And then he says, verse 11, I have taught thee in the way of wisdom. I have led thee in the right paths. As my father gave it to me, I give it to them. You're supposed to give to your children. Continue to give to them, just like it was given to you. Were your parents perfect? No. I mean, you probably had some problems in your own home, skeletons in your closets. I mean, my home was broken. It's no secret. I mean, I know when my mom and dad got married, what was it, 5 months before I got here I was born. So you know what that means. And then they left. But most homes have that. But guess what? Just because somebody's a failure, they know what the Lord says. They can teach you a lot of things. There's nobody perfect. But you take what your father gave you, what your mother gave you, when they tell you something about what does the Lord say. I've had Christians say, well, I can't say anything because, I failed in the same respect. Why not teach your kids the right way? Well, I failed. That doesn't change the truth. When there's nobody perfect, nobody's sinless. But the truth is still there. Teach them the truth. His father taught him, he says now in verse 11, I have taught thee in the way of wisdom. I have led thee in the right path. When thou goest, thy steps shall not be straitened. And when thou runnest, thou shalt not stumble. Take fast hold of instruction, and let her not go. Keep her, for she is thy life. That's how you get by. The knowledge of God is the greatest asset you've ever had in your life. When push comes to shove and you got nowhere else to turn to and you turn to God, greatest thing you'll ever have in your life. And that's what he means by this. He says, keep her, she is your life. You're not going to fall, you're going to stumble. Take hold of her. She's your life. But don't you do this. Enter not in the path of the wicked, and go not the way of evil men. Avoid it, pass not by it, turn from it, and pass away. Don't go by the way of evil men. As they tell you, well, come, let's do so. Well, we're just going to go down to so-and-so for a little while. And then you get down, you realize, wait a minute, I shouldn't have come down here. I didn't realize they'll get me in this kind of mess. How many of you guys realize after a while you had to start driving your own vehicle? Anybody had that problem? I was the only one? Okay, I'm the only one. I realized that. It didn't take me long to, can't be robbing anybody else uptown. All of a sudden, they go to places you don't want to go to, right? Be places you shouldn't be, right? Maybe you ladies had that happen to you. Can't go. Oh, so you find out, he says, no. Don't go along with them. Avoid it, pass by it, turn from it, and pass away. Because you're always, as they say, the antenna's up, and like, wait a minute, I don't seem right. Now, y'all go ahead. I'm going to stay here. Well, we're just going to ride down to the store for a little bit. You said you're going to be back in a couple hours. Well, we thought we'd go a little further. I say, I picked that up. You say you're going to run down to the store and you see about a couple of hours. Yeah, I know you're going some other place. I heard what you told your mama. Y'all got other things you got planned. I can't go. But look, avoid it. Pass by it. For they sleep not, except they have done mischief. And their sleep is taken away unless they cause some to fall. In other words, they're designed for evil. They want to do something that's wrong. They're trying to do something that's wrong. They like the chaos. By the way, that's kind of man's operandus modi. That's what he wants to do. I want to cause chaos. Most people do. They try to get into evil. They try to do evil things, and they want you to come along with them. By the way, if you ever understand why people don't say nothing about something they know is wrong, because, well, I'm doing wrong, and I want you to say nothing about me, so I got to say nothing about you, so we can all be okay, right? I know it's wrong, but if I tell you, you're going to correct me, so I got to put up with what you do, because I want to do what I do. No, here's how he says it. Their sleep is taken away unless they make someone fall. For they eat the bread, they eat the bread of wickedness and they drink the wine of violence. That's what their life is. But the path of the just is shining light. That shineth more and more unto the perfect day. You're not like that. My son, don't be like them. Avoid them. Don't spend time with them. Stay away from them. Have you taught your children this? And you say, here's why don't do so-and-so. When they get older, when your kids hit puberty, you're going to have to treat them different. Hey, they know better. They know things. They have insight. Tell them, this is why you don't do so-and-so. This is why you don't do that. This is why you avoid that. Because this is the end product. Well, it won't happen to me. You're not that good. Why? Because daddy wasn't that good. Mama, I wasn't that good, okay? Nobody is, right? This is one of those things. And you give that wisdom to them. Don't follow it. You know better. The path of the just is shining more and more. The way of the wicked is darkness. They know not not at what they stumble. Your paths are lit, shineth forevermore. They don't even know what they're stumbling over. That's why they're so wicked. They have no clue what they're doing. They don't know what they're just haphazard. But you know where you're headed. Just cardinal sins, cardinal rules, things you put out there to say, son, don't do this. This will get you in trouble. Daughter, don't do this. This will get you in trouble. In other words, always do this. No. Do this. My first one I ever did in my life was this. My kids remember it well. You at the table and you drink it. You got to push up the front. Don't put it near you. You might hit it and knock it over. I mean, this is one of those things I taught my kids. They were at home. No, put your glass up there because you're going to knock it over. Go out. That's what's going to happen. Certain things, just teach them. Teach them the basics. Hey, when you start dating, no. Don't go to her house. Mom and daddy home. Don't go there. Just keep on riding. Keep on. You'll be okay. Certain things you just don't do. You teach that. And you tell them why. And there's certain things you want to give them instructions. Let's say he says it here. They know not what they stumble. The wicked is in darkness. And they'll fall into traps all the time. By the way, there's safety nets now. They fall into the trap, they can get out of it. They can get out of it easy. There's so many programs to get people out. By the way, it's always amazes me how many people get into trouble, and it's like, well, they do some heinous crime, right? And then you look and they got a rap sheet this long, like, they've been in trouble their whole life. How come this person was out on the street? Because there's no punishment. We can't keep them all in jail. Why not? Well, we'd have everybody in jail. Well, if you had punishment that would keep them, what's the deterrent to stop people from doing it? I had not an argument, but I had a great discussion recently with somebody who was on the other side. And I said, I'd love to take you this one time. I had to do this one night. Be in the nursery with a baby born on drugs, and listen to the cries of the baby in the throat. This has been 25 years ago. But it just tears your nerves up. And the mothers it's not their first child that they've done like that. They don't care. And there's no punishment. Whether they're a victim. What about the baby? You can get away with a lot of things now. You get by with too many things. And these people do the same, and they really don't know what they're doing. They stumble. He said, look, my son, you're not like that. Verse 20, attend to my words. Incline thine ear unto my sayings. Let them not depart from thine eyes. Keep them in the midst of thine heart. For they are life unto thee, those that find them in health to all their flesh. Again, he points out it's life to you. Listen to what I'm telling you. By the way, Solomon could have had this, and he was taught by his father, right? And we know that Solomon legally, he was right. Because he married every one of those women. Every one of the concubines, everything was legal, right? But it was a sin. You knew it was, right? Because what was God's first thing he told him? Now, don't multiply wives to yourself, because they'll turn your heart away. And that's exactly what happened. His wisdom did not help him, did it? He didn't listen to his father. But he knew it. And he wrote these Proverbs. Perhaps he wrote them at the end of his life. It's like the book of Ecclesiastes. We often think it, because the way it's written, it's like at the end of his life when he comes to knowledge saying, well, I really messed up. Because you think that you know enough, I can overcome this. I'm that smart. No, son. Listen, attend my words. Don't let them depart from your eyes. They're life to you, their flesh. Keep thy heart with all diligence out of the issues of life. In other words, hold down your passions. Keep your heart. The issues of life are there. Whatever you do. Listen, keep your heart with all diligence. Guard it. Guard your heart. We know how the heart can be so deceitful, but guard it. You can get yourself into all kinds of predicaments. Guard yourself. Protect yourself. I've counseled some people who've gone astray. You got a young son, and all of a sudden, I had an abortion. Nobody knows it. I got to tell somebody, but I was wondering what my child would have looked like. How do you deal with forgiveness with that? Easy. You go to God. But those things happen. I didn't pay it. I didn't listen. I made this mistake in my marriage. Daddy don't know that I did this, but I did something I shouldn't have done it. Mama don't know. Grandpa, no. All the things where's the wisdom? And it's like, were you ever taught that? Were you ever taught this? Most of the time we have. And you knew better. And so he's saying, hold on to wisdom. Now, not that everybody's perfect, but it's a father giving his son good instruction. Verse number 3 says, I was my father's son. Verse 4, he taught me. Verse 11, I have taught thee. He is giving out what his father gave to him. And by the way, if you ever notice this, you say the same things. I was reminded of a movie star one time. I think it was Madonna said something. And one of my friends said, now, you know she never done that when she was young. But I was just telling her child this. She didn't believe it herself. Guess what? That's what happens. You get old, you realize I got to protect my child. If you're really a good mama, and she said something was really kind of like, maybe it wasn't Madonna, it was one of the Hollywood stars. You realize they get older, you think, am I going to give them proper instruction? I hadn't realized it. But verse number 4, he taught. Say what now? Say what?
Don't turn out like that. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, you're trying to explain to them that you'll save yourself from heartache. I mean, we're getting ready to have the playoffs here for the NFL. And what's the final game of the NFL called? The Super Bowl. Now, you know, somebody says it's a curse to sing at the Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
Because most of them die, right? Tom Petty in the heart. Remember Tom Petty? He's dead. Michael Jackson's dead. Elvis Presley didn't sing. Whitney Houston. And one of the greatest, probably one of the most perfect Super Bowls ever. I remember I read it in one of the articles. He said, what are we going to do? Because, it's going to be bad tonight. The weather changed. What are we going to do? And he said, we're going to embrace it. It's going to rain tonight. And he sang Purple Rain. Prince, right? And it rained that night. And it was like he sang Purple Rain. He said, no, I'm going to embrace it. We're going to be fine. And he did one of the greatest renditions. He's dead. People that made mistakes in their lives. I mean, Whitney Houston's daughter could not follow what happened to her mother. And these things happen to these people. You see them like Chris Farley and John Belushi and others that have died. Well, the guy that played so many different movies. I can see his face, but there are many of them. But here's a father saying, son, protect your heart. Put away from thee the froward mouth and perverse lips. Put it far from thee. Let thine eyes look right on, and let thine eyelids look straight before thee. No, to put the blinders on. Just look at what I tell you to do. Just see it like this. I promise you it'll work. But I never have any fun like that. It ain't fun. As soon as you get out there, you realize you're trapped like the rest of them. And guess what? Got trapped like the rest of them. They made it look so enticing. They look so good. By the way, you know why they make it look so good? I'll give you a principle out of the Bible, because this is exactly what he's pointing to. Every man buys a truck, right? You get your new F-150. Guy gets another one, and he got a better deal on it. Are you going to admit that he got a better deal? No, well, I got so-and-so on mine, and it rides smooth. And you're never going to say, well, I tell you what, you sure beat me on that. You're always going to make out, well, I didn't make a mistake. Nobody wants to admit, and they'll what we call manage up, What happens when people make a mistake and get caught out in drugs, alcohol, sexual sin, lying, cheating, murdering, get caught out there doing in jobs where they're like, I've been cheating for a long time, I can get away with it. There's nothing wrong, man. We're doing fine. And as soon as you get out, you're like, why didn't you tell me it's like this year? It's not bad. It's a good life. No, it's not. But I'm stuck in it. They entice you. So he says, look, it's like put blinders on. Put away the froward mouth, the perverse lips. Your eyes look right on. Let the eyelids look straight before thee. Ponder the path of thy feet, and let all thy ways be established. Look at your feet. Follow what you're doing. Ponder the path of your feet. In other words, where am I headed to now? What am I fixing to do? Where am I headed? Always be careful about what you're doing. In other words, just be aware of your surroundings, right? As wise as serpent, harmless as doves. And this is the old, the blinders you put on the mule and the horse, so you just keep straight ahead. You follow what is right. Correct? Ponder the path of your feet. Don't turn to the right or to the left. Turn not to the right hand nor to the left. Remove thy foot from evil. Follow the right way. Follow what's proper. And here's a father giving his son instructions. He's been doing it for 4 chapters now. And he says, get wisdom. And now he's saying, make an application of wisdom. Just let her bind thee and follow what I tell you to do. If you don't, trouble's going to happen. So he begins to tell his son now on the sexual sins. He'll go on to chapter 6. Again, if you look at this, he continues this entire thing through chapter 7. A father telling his son, don't fall into this trap. My son, attend to my wisdom and bow thine ear to my understanding, that thou mayest regard discretion, and that thou lips may keep knowledge. Again, he starts this off starting with wisdom. He says, wisdom, verse 1, understanding, to keep knowledge, all those. The same thing he's been saying all along. Keep this. Know what it says. Stay out of trouble. For the lips of a strained woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. Now, I read through David Guzik's commentary, and he's talking about how the woman uses the honey, etc. But he's pointing out the enticement of a strange woman. He says, and he's talking about a brothel or any strange a woman that's not your wife, a woman that's not yours. You're a young man. Now, I know his father gave him the same instruction. By the way, if you know his father, who was Solomon's father? David. Did he ever have a sexual sin in his life? It led to murder, didn't it? Yes. So he was giving good. So David gave his son good instruction from a very good standpoint. I've already been there. I messed up. Caused me to murder a man. Now he is telling his son. Solomon said, son, listen. The lips of a strained woman, they drop as a honeycomb. Her mouth is smoother than oil. I mean, she's perfect. She's everything you've ever wanted. Your whole desire. The lips of a strange woman. No. Not just anyone. In my Bible, the King James says strange. What does it say in the NIV? Or other versions?
Which verse?
Immoral, right?
Chapter 5:3.
Yeah. Adulterous woman. This other version is called an immoral woman. Yeah, her lips are like honeycomb, her mouth smooth, but her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. The end of her, what it's going to end up with, is bitter as wormwood. It's awful. Her feet go down to death, and her steps take hold on hell. No, you think she looks all those things. It's just an enticement. It's not going to help you. So now he warns them about a woman, an immoral woman. Adulterers, immoral. It says a strange woman. That means that somebody not your wife. But Solomon's talking to his son as his dad. He says in verse number 4 of chapter 4, he taught me, verse 11, I have taught thee. It's one father telling his son, I said, I'm telling you what my daddy gave to me. Listen to me. It maybe seem right, but it's bad. Her steps take hold on hell, lest thou shouldest ponder the path of life. Her ways are movable, and that thou canst not know them. The ways of this woman are unstable. You can't know them. You can't figure this lady out. You think she's all those things. She's not. For those of you who never ever listened to music from the 70s, back in the 70s, we did have some terrible music, but we had some decent songs. But some of you listened to them, you realize they were about strange women. And one of the famous Canadian singers' name was Gordon Lightfoot. And Gordon Lightfoot messed his entire marriage up. And he sang a song about it. If you could read my mind, love, what tell my talk well. And he talks about how he messed up in his marriage. He destroyed him. Sundown was about the strange woman that he had. And he couldn't repair it. He ruined his marriage. And he knew it. And he wrote a song about it, trying to, some way trying to apologize to his wife. How he had destroyed everything. He said, no. You can't know her. There's no way. She is unstable, verse 6. Let's say in your Bible, unstable. Hear now, therefore, you children, and depart not from the words of my mouth. Now, you think he's just talking to his son, but this applies to women as well, to children. But it's just a man talking to his son, so you can extrapolate from that what you will. Remove thy way far from her. Come not nigh to the door of her house, lest thou give thine honor to others and thy years unto the cruel. You're going to lose everything. You think you're going to gain, but you're going to lose it all. You're going to lose everything that you work for. You give your honor to somebody else. Remove your way. Don't go there. Lest strangers be filled with thy wealth, and thy labors be in the house of a stranger. Yeah. In other words, now here it almost gives the honor. Your honor goes to someone else. Others get your wealth. Others take what you have. Now, whether you go to jail for what you've done, how to go to prison, but you'll give your honor. He says you give your honor to others. You give your years unto the cruel. They're going to be filled with thy wealth. Thy laborers be in the house of a stranger. You might be a servant, be a slave to someone else. And thou mourn at the last with thy flesh and the body are consumed. You lose everything. Why? Because what you thought was sweet, what you thought was perfect, what you saw that, it's unstable. And you're going to stay away from her house, and you'll give your honor to somebody else. You're going to give away everything that you've got. Everything will be consumed. Go ahead.
And this was a family that dealt with that stuff.
Huh?
This was a family that dealt with these issues.
Oh, yeah.
Solomon and David both had a problem with women. So the thing about it, Satan will convince you that it's for the moment, but some sins last your lifetime. Like I struggle with women, or I struggle with men, or whatever. But for the rest of my life, that's going to be the chain around my ankle.
Because remember, what David ended up messing up with is he couldn't curtail his children.
Yeah, and he couldn't.
Remember, his son.
Even when he ate, hey, go get me a young woman.
But again, I'm reminded of how he took his daughter and he never took up for her when his son raped his own daughter and did nothing. Absalom killing that guy's brother, but it caused all kind of chaos because he's well, I messed up and I can't fix this. No, it's still true. Now Solomon should have known better.
And it's a man looking back on his life saying, I know you've learned certain things from me because the son learns a lot of things from the father. And I'm trying to tell you, please don't go down this road. If I had not done this, where would my life be? You want to look at your life and see where it would have been? Right. If I didn't have this chain around my ankle, where would I? Yeah.
It says, look, it says, and thou mourn the last when thy flesh and thy body are consumed. The last is gone. And then you say, well, how I hated instruction, and my heart despised reproof. I should have listened to what they told me. I knew better than that. You know, my dad told me, never go to McCall. Never go to McCall. I mean, because you're in North Carolina, don't ever go down there because they see those tags. You're asking for trouble. Don't ever go. I was given certain instructions, and I was told, don't ever ride anybody in this car. Guess what? I did. And I messed up. But you know what? It's hard to get the smell of marijuana out of the back of your car. And that's what happened. I'm asking about, what in the name of God? Come here. I went out, I got rid of them, but I was already messed up then. I never knew about it because I did all I could to get it out there. But I never again, because I had learned, I'm going to drive my own vehicle. I said, well, guys will respect you, right? No, they don't. They don't respect you. So I ended up being by myself after that. You learn these lessons, but my dad had already taught me that. We just don't listen. But the point he's making about the woman here is, no. You look at yourself, man, you know what? I hated instruction. My heart despised reproof. I have not obeyed the voice of my teachers, nor inclined mine ear unto them that instructed me. I was almost in all evil in the midst of the congregation of the assembly. And everybody knew what I'd done. I'm in the midst of foolishness. By the way, I've done this. And then you get in the middle of all them Christians, and they say, you did so-and-so. Yep, messed up. That's what happens. That's what happens to you. And that's what he tells them here. He says, no, I didn't incline. I was on the verge of total ruin in the midst of the assembly and the congregation. On the verge of ruin. Why? Because of one thing. So how does he say to do this? To avoid this woman. And we know this in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Let every man have his own wife, and every woman her own husband. How do you avoid this? So Solomon gives good instruction. Look, drink waters out of thine own cistern and running waters out of thine own well. Now, I know that, I think David Guzzi given that there's two interpretations people want to give you. I'm going to tell you the interpretation I know of. He's talking about, hey, you got your own wife, son. Stick with that one woman. Drink waters from your own cistern. She belongs to you. That's where sex is supposed to be. It's absolutely supposed to be there. Drink water of thy own cistern, running waters out of thine own well. In other words, nobody else. You got somebody, that's yours. She belongs to you. Let thy fountain be dispersed abroad and rivers of water in the streets. In other words, that's speaking of children. Let them be yours. Have children. And by the way, be fruitful, be multiply, and replenish the earth. But what he's trying to point out in this proverb is, you can't deny that it's not just that you're having children, it's the pleasurable part of it. It's the sexual part. Why are you going after a strange woman? You got one at home, don't you? And she satisfies your needs, right? And I'm trying not to be too in depth, make sure I'm palatable here. But that's what it means. You get your own children out in the street, not somebody else's children. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad in rivers of water in the street. Let them be only thine own and not strangers with thee. Not to have children in the street, not children that ain't yours. Let them be thine own and not strangers with thee. By the way, because you and your wife are one, right? You know, if you have a child, that's your wife's child, it's the same. And that's born out by Abraham and Sarah, right? Abraham says, Lord, you promised me I'd have a child. Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. You said I have a child. Ishmael's my child. She ain't Sarah's. She ain't Sarah's. She ain't yours. That's what he means. And that's what Proverbs, the Solomon is saying here. No, let them be thine and thine only, and not a stranger's with thee. No. Well, how can I avoid? So how do you avoid, son, the lips of a strange woman? He says, this is all the dangers of her. So how do you avoid this? I'll tell you what you do. Let her be thine. Let thy fountain be blessed. Rejoice with the wife of thy youth. The woman you've had all these, rejoice with her. Now he speaks about, no. Let your pleasure. Her lips of a strange woman like the honeycomb. Her mouth is smoother than oil. Look, your wife is the same way that she is. Stay with your wife, the wife of your youth. He says, no, the wife that you've had all along, that is yours. And listen, what he's trying to make a point is this. It's not about having children. He's not talking about being fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth. He's not giving you this thing about how plurality and singularity that I promote so many times. He's trying to tell you, no, there's pleasure in the sexual relationship. But you've got somebody, you don't need somebody else. Stick with your own wife. Drink water from your own cistern. Stay with her. Let her be as the loving hind and pleasant roe. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times. Be thou ravished always. Be thou ravished always with her love. Now the other version will say, be always enraptured with her love. In other words, it is emotional. It is that eros. That's the type of love that is there. And guess what? The bed is undefiled, the Bible says, right? Marriage is honorable and all, and the bed undefiled. The bed is not defiled. Absolutely. What you do in the privacy, that's between y'all. That's your wife, that's your husband. He says, son, you got your own wife. Make sure that she satisfies those needs so you ain't out there in the streets. Again, Paul the Apostle says the same thing in chapter 7. He says, no, husband, you don't have power of your body. Your wife does. She's got needs. That's your responsibility. Ma'am, you don't have power of your body. That your husband's got needs. That's your responsibility. Why? Because so Satan doesn't tempt you. In fact, he says the only time you can abstain is for fasting and prayer. And it has to be what? Consent, it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. If she don't agree or he don't agree, no. It has to be with consent and has set a time limit on it because Satan will tempt you for your incontinencies in the King James. But it says inconsistency in your sexual life. He says, no, there's pleasure there. How do I avoid verse number 3? Verse number 19. And he used the same, see, when in verse 19 he says ravished, he used the same word in verse number 20. Why wilt thou, my son, be ravished with a strange woman? It's the same way. In other words, it's not any different. How important is that union? Son, you got married. By the way, there's nothing wrong with getting married early. You have to, by the way, can I say just a moment about the youth? I need to say this. We have to be really careful as Christians not to tell people you're too young to get married. You have to be real careful. Because many times moms and dads and grandmamas and granddaddies will say that, and they really don't know. All they know is, I don't think you're ready. Did you sit down and ask them? Because sometimes all they need is the basics, right? Daddy, I don't know, I do this. You got a son that's going to be committed to a woman the rest of his life, and she's committed to him. What's wrong with it? Why? He works a job, and I don't know if he ain't going to have a lot. He needs to get a college education, so he can get a good place. Who cares about a good place? Get him a little single white out there and let him stay. Man, he makes enough money for that. Help the brother out, you know? He's just starting off. He needs to get married. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I want my daughter to get her education so she doesn't have to depend on a man. That's, by the way, Christians don't ever say that. I mean, that's just sacrilegious to go against what God said. You never tell a woman you should be in charge of the household. It's not biblical. I mean, you're supposed to get married, have children, live together. I don't want her to depend on a man, but if she gets married, she won't have to depend on him. That's what you're saying. Well, that's not a good excuse.
You never hear them say anything about the Lord. I've heard parents say that, and they never say, well, you know, the Lord told me that my young don't need to marry that person. They say, I don't want to.
That's right.
And it's self-centered. It's the chapter that we're reading right now.
And sometimes they feel like they made the mistake themselves. I was 16 when I got married.
I had that too. I had an individual that I did. Yeah. And it was just, you could see it, but they couldn't see it because it had been since she was a child. And everything was groomed to become this individual because later on, I was never able to become that individual. So now she's going to become that. Yeah, they're living vicariously through them.
But the same parents also are sitting there telling you that it's been married 60 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And they got married.
I messed up with him. Yeah.
Yeah, still married.
So, I mean, 16 years old.
Which goes back
well, how can you get married when you're 16? Well, some people are grown at 16. They really are.
You go out and say, I'm going to get what I need when it's all about God's going to give it to you.
Yeah, what does the Lord say? What does God say? I mean, I can tell you today when the Lord told me to marry that lady right there. I remember when it was, and I was 18 years old. And I had a whole life ahead of me, a college career and all that, and I gave it up for that reason. Why? Because the Lord said, you need to get married. It's the proper thing.
And our own family, because the dumbest thing ever could. You know, it's the dumbest decision Glenn should have never done.
They did. I mean, it was like, you're stupid. You'll never be anything. You're infatuated. As opposed to what it says here, the wife of your youth. It's good to get married young. There's nothing wrong with waiting, but so say okay to get married young. He said, but son, Why will you be ravaged with a strange woman and embrace the bosom of a stranger? For the ways of a man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he pondereth all his goings. You know God sees this, and you know better. He says, I can tell you, son, no. Why will you do this? Rejoice with the wife of you. Why will you be ravaged with another woman? He said, for the ways of a man are before the eyes of the Lord. His own iniquities shall take the wicked himself, and he shall be holden with the cords of his sins. His own iniquities will entrap the wicked man. He is caught in the cords of his sin. He shall die without instruction. And in the greatness of his folly, he shall go astray. He shall die for lack of instruction, and in his greatness of his folly, he shall go astray. Solomon knew better. Solomon taught his son. But Solomon had the same problem. We know in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 17, it says about the king. Do not, I think it's Deuteronomy 17 and verse 18. Do not multiply wives to yourself. Even before they got to the promised land, before they ever even thought about a king, God knew what they were going to do, and he instructed them as this. He says, no. Chapter 17, verse 17. Neither shall he multiply wives to himself. Son, you never multiply wives to yourself. I think it's 1 Kings chapter 11. But King Solomon loved many strange women. 1 Kings 11:1. Many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, the women of Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord said to the children of Israel, you shall not go into them. He did wrong. He knew better, and he did it anyway. Well, I'm smart enough. It won't happen to me. I'm smart. I can overcome this. But he did it anyway. And at the end of his life, he is trying to kill Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. In other words, God had told him, I'm going to take the kingdom away from him. God was upset with Solomon. Solomon gives instructions to his son, and he didn't follow himself. David gave instruction to Solomon. David told his son, don't be like I did, son. Don't mess up like I did. But he did. And it happened. So again, the first 5 chapters we've been talking about is wisdom. Son, I'm giving you good, solid things. Understand this. And I like that in chapter 4, verse 5 and verse 7, get wisdom, get understanding. With all you get and get understanding. With all that you've got, get this understanding. You're going to need it. Don't let it go. For what all you do, listen to it. By the way, the Bible gives all these instructions. It tells you all about marriage and how the bed is undefiled, and it tells you, hey, how do you avoid this? Well, son, he didn't just say avoid this woman. He says, no, you got a wife. Let her be that to you. All right, we'll pick up chapter 6, verse 1 next week, brother. Let's stop there. And next year will be next year. Yeah, we won't see each other on Wednesday night anymore this year. Yeah, it'll be next year. So chapter 6 and verse number 1, pick up there. Let's stand and have a word of prayer and we'll be dismissed.
We're not meeting Sunday night.
No, we're not meeting Sunday night. Huh? Yeah.